The caption under my old bedroom photo read, "Finally aired out the charity case room. Burning sage as we speak." My sister posted it at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning. By noon, it had 340 likes. I was sitting in the parking garage of my new apartment building when the notification came through. I didn't cry. I didn't type anything back. I took a screenshot, set my phone face down on the passenger seat, and sat there for a minute listening to the engine cool down after the 3-hour drive. My name is Nora Callahan. I'm 32 years old. For the last 6 years, I worked nights as a remote operations coordinator for a logistics company most people have never heard of, which means I was invisible in exactly the way my family needed me to be, present enough to use, quiet enough to ignore. I want to tell you what happened 2.5 weeks after that photo went up. But first, I need you to understand what the room they were burning sage in actually was. My grandmother bought that house in 1987. It was a 3-bedroom colonial, on a half-acre in rural Pennsylvania. Nothing fancy, the kind of house where the gutters needed cleaning every fall, and the furnace made a sound like a man clearing his throat. When she passed, she left it jointly to my mother and my uncle, with one condition written clearly in the estate documents. As long as a direct family member was living there and maintaining the property, no one could force a sale. My mother moved back in 2 years after the funeral. My uncle, who lived in Arizona and had no interest in Pennsylvania winters, agreed to a quiet arrangement. My mother would manage the property, and he'd stay on title as a silent co-owner. What nobody mentioned to me at the time was that managing the property had become synonymous with Nora handles it. It started small. My mother asked me to set up autopay for the homeowner's insurance because she found the website confusing. Then the property tax bill came, and she said her checking account was short that month. Could I cover it, and she'd pay me back? Then the furnace did finally break, and the repair was $2,400, and my uncle said he'd contribute, but the check never came and the repairman needed payment by Friday. I kept a spreadsheet. I'm the kind of person who keeps spreadsheets. 6 years of entries, color-coded by category: insurance, taxes, maintenance, utilities. The running total, by the time I drove away from that house for the last time, was $47,300, not counting groceries I'd bought. Not counting the 2 months I'd covered my sister's car payment when she said she'd lose her job without a vehicle, and then used the money I'd freed up to book a trip to Cancun. My sister's name is Dana. She's 4 years older than me and has the specific confidence of someone who has never once been told no by anyone she shared blood with. Growing up, Dana was the one who got the school trips, the prom dress budget, the benefit of the doubt in every argument. I was the one who was described, in family settings, as the practical one, which is a polite way of saying the one we don't worry about, because she'll figure it out. I figured it out. I figured it out for 6 years, while working nights and sleeping during the days in a room where the blackout curtains I'd hung were described, in Dana's post, as dungeon chic. My mother commented, "So much light now. Can't believe we lived like this." My cousin Ryan wrote, "Lamau, she really had you all living in a haunted house." My aunt, my mother's sister, a woman who once asked to borrow my emergency fund and was furious when I said no, commented, "Good riddance to bad energy. Fresh start for everyone." 37 comments total. I read every single one. I liked every single one. Not sarcastically, not as a statement. I just wanted them to know I had seen it. Then I carried my last box up to the 4th floor, unpacked my coffee maker, made a cup, opened my laptop, and got to work. Here's what most people don't know about being the quiet one in a family. Quiet doesn't mean passive. It means you've learned that the people around you aren't listening, so you stopped wasting words and started keeping records instead. I had records. The homeowner's insurance policy was in my name. I had set it up when my mother couldn't find her social security card and needed the policy active before a contractor would start work on the back porch. I had just never transferred it. The premium came out of an account I controlled. The policy listed my address as the contact address, because at the time, I lived there. The property tax account was linked to my email. I had set up the county portal login when my mother called me from the tax office, frustrated, saying the website wasn't loading. I created the account with my email and a password she never asked for. The utility accounts, electric and gas, were in my mother's name. But the autopay was connected to a card I had added as a backup payment method 2 winters ago, when her account overdrafted and the gas company threatened to suspend service during a cold snap. I had never removed myself. I was not going to do anything illegal. I wasn't going to cancel anything without notice. I wasn't going to sabotage. I don't operate that way, and more importantly, I didn't need to. What I was going to do was stop doing things I had never been asked to do, had simply started doing, and never stopped, and that no one in that house had thought to ask about or take over or even acknowledge. The first thing I did was contact the homeowner's insurance company. I explained that I was no longer residing at the property and would like to remove it from my policy. They walked me through it. Before I ended the call, I asked them to send a coverage lapse notice to the property address so the residents would be aware they needed to arrange their own policy. The representative said that was standard procedure. The second thing I did was log into the county property tax portal and update the contact email to my mother's address, which I had on file. I also removed the autopay. There was a quarterly payment due in 18 days. The county would send a reminder to her inbox. Whether she checked that inbox was not my concern. The third thing I did was call the electric company and remove myself as the backup payment method. I did not cancel the account. I did not touch anything that would cause an immediate disruption. I simply removed my card and my contact information and noted in the account that the primary account holder should be contacted directly for all future correspondence. I did the same with the gas account. Then, I opened the spreadsheet I'd maintained for 6 years, created a final summary tab, saved a copy to my secure cloud storage, and closed the laptop. It was a Thursday. I ordered Thai food, watched 2 episodes of a show I'd been meaning to start for months, and went to bed at 10 o'clock, which was the first time in 6 years I had gone to bed at a normal human hour. Before I tell you what the first phone call was about, let me ask you something. Have you ever been the person in your family who everyone assumed would just handle it? Not because they asked you to, not because you volunteered, but because at some point, without any conversation or agreement, it became understood that you were the one who handled things, and the moment you stopped, the whole architecture would show? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear from you. The first call came 11 days later. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. She said the insurance company had sent something in the mail about a lapse in coverage, and she didn't understand it, and could I call them because I was better at dealing with these things. I texted back. You'll need to set up your own policy. Here's the company's number. I included the number. I did not call the company for her. She did not respond to the text. The second call came 2 days after that. It was Dana. She didn't leave a voicemail. She called 4 times in 40 minutes, which is a pattern I recognized from the 2 times in my life I had turned my phone off and she needed something. I texted her, "Hey, I'm working. What's up?" She wrote back, "Mom got a letter about taxes. Something about a payment not going through. Can you look into it?" I wrote back, "I'm not connected to that account anymore. She'll need to log in and set up payment directly. The county website is pretty straightforward." She replied, "Why did you disconnect from it?" I replied, "Because I don't live there anymore." There was a long pause. Then, "That's really mature, Nora." I put the phone down and went back to work. What I had not anticipated, and what I probably should have, was my uncle. He called on a Saturday morning, 14 days after I moved out. My uncle is not a bad person. He's the kind of man who avoids conflict with the same dedication other people reserve for religion, which means he had spent decades not asking questions he didn't want answered. But he was still on the title. And when the insurance company sent a formal lapse notice to the property address, it included language about the risk to the insured structure, and that language had apparently alarmed him enough to finally pick up the phone. "Nora," he said, "your mother tells me you canceled the insurance." "I removed myself from my own policy," I said. "The house was covered under an account in my name. I don't live there anymore, so I closed it. She needs to set up coverage in her name." There was a pause. "How long has it been in your name?" he asked. "About 4 years." Another pause. "And the taxes?" he said. I removed myself from the payment account. The county sent a notice. "There's a payment due." "How much?" I told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Nora, I didn't know you were handling all of this." "I know," I said. "Nobody did. I don't think my uncle is a bad person. I think he is a person who benefited from not looking too closely, and when the bill for that finally arrived, it surprised him. That's a different kind of problem than the one my mother and Dana have, but it's still a problem." He said he would handle the tax payment. I thanked him and told him that my records, if he ever needed them for estate purposes, were available. He said he might take me up on that. We hung up. I don't know what conversations happened in that house over the next 48 hours. What I know is what arrived in my text messages. My mother, who had not responded to my text about the insurance company, sent a message at 11:22 on a Tuesday night. "I don't know what we did to deserve this from you. Your grandmother would be heartbroken." I read it. I did not respond. Dana sent a voice memo, which I have never understood as a format for anything that isn't directions. I listened to it once. It was 4 minutes long and covered, in order, how stressful the past 2 weeks had been, how I had always been difficult, how the family had done so much for me growing up, how I was being selfish, and how if I had a problem, I should have just said something instead of doing this. Doing this. That's how she described it. Doing this. As if the thing I had done was an act of aggression, rather than simply the cessation of an act of generosity that no one had noticed was happening. I didn't respond to the voice memo either. My aunt, the one who commented "good riddance to bad energy," texted me, "Your mother is not doing well. I hope you're proud of yourself." I thought about responding. I thought about it for about 30 seconds. Then I put the phone in my bag and went to the gym, which I had started going to in the mornings because I finally had mornings. Here is the thing about being silent that I don't think people understand when they're on the outside of it. It's not the same as being cold. It's not punishment. It's the natural result of finally understanding that the conversation you've been waiting to have is never going to happen the way you imagined it, and you've stopped imagining it. I had imagined, over 6 years, many versions of a conversation in which someone in my family looked at what I was doing and said thank you. Or even just said, "I see you. I see that you are the one who made sure this didn't fall apart." I don't need a ceremony. I don't need a speech. I needed someone to notice. Nobody noticed, until it stopped. That's not a moment I want to be angry about anymore. It's just information. The missed calls, when I finally counted them, were 29. Across my mother, Dana, my aunt, and 2 numbers I didn't recognize that I assume were relatives I haven't spoken to in years, being recruited for a phone campaign. 29 calls over 18 days. The messages were harder to count because some of them were long, and some were short, and some were from people who had never texted me before in my life, including my cousin Ryan, who had commented "Elmeu" under Dana's sage-burning post, and who now wanted me to know that family is everything, and I should think about what really matters. I thought about what really mattered. What mattered to me was that for the first time in 6 years, I slept 8 hours. What mattered was that my bank account stopped bleeding out in small increments that I'd normalized as the cost of keeping peace. What mattered was that I had a kitchen I didn't share with people who left dishes in the sink and then asked me if I'd cleaned them. What mattered was that I had a morning. There's a particular kind of grief that comes with leaving people who should have been safe for you but weren't. It doesn't feel the way grief is supposed to feel. It feels quieter and flatter, like something you set down that you've been holding so long you forgot it had weight. I set it down in that parking garage. In the 45 seconds I sat with the engine cooling. I wasn't happy exactly. I wasn't triumphant. I was just lighter. A week after the last missed call, I went back through my spreadsheet. I printed the summary tab. I had a brief consult with an estate attorney, nothing formal. Just a conversation about what documentation I should hold on to given the joint title situation and my 6 years of financial contributions. She told me what to keep. I kept it. I haven't spoken to my mother since I moved out. I haven't spoken to Dana. I sent my uncle a brief email when he asked, attaching the relevant financial records, and he replied with a thank you that was short and a little stiff, like a man who was still processing something. I don't know what the house looks like now. I don't know if they sorted the insurance or if my uncle handled it, or if it's sitting there uninsured and no one is thinking about what that means. I don't know, and I have stopped making that my problem to think about. What I do know is this. The last photo my mother posted, the one with the sage and the light streaming into my old room, got 412 likes. My old room had blackout curtains because I worked nights and slept days. I installed those curtains myself, on my day off, with a drill I bought and still own. The room needed them. I needed them. She needed the curtain gone to see the light. I needed to leave to see it myself. Here's what I want to say to you, whoever you are watching this right now. There are people who will love you most as a function as the one who handles things, as the responsible one, as the safety net, and they will not think of themselves as people who love you less. They'll think of themselves as people who rely on you, which they've confused with trust, which they've confused with love. When you stop being the function, they will be genuinely shocked. Not ashamed, shocked. Because to be ashamed, you have to first understand what was happening. I don't think my mother understands what was happening. I think she thinks I left in anger. I think Dana thinks I was making a point. I think my aunt thinks I had some kind of episode. None of them have considered the spreadsheet. None of them know about the 6 years of entries, color-coded, totaling out to a number that would have paid off a car. None of them asked, and I've stopped waiting for the question. The morning after I moved in, I made coffee in a kitchen that was mine. I sat at a table by a window that faced east and watched the light come in. I hadn't watched morning light in 6 years because mornings had been for sleeping, and sleeping had been the only thing I could protect as entirely my own. I watched the light. I didn't think about the calls. I didn't think about the voicemails. I didn't think about the sage, or the 412 likes, or what my cousin Ryan thought about what really matters. I thought about what I wanted to do next. That, I think, is the real ending. Not the calls, not the consequences, not the moment they realized what was gone. The ending is the morning where you sit with your coffee, and the question in your head is finally, for the first time in years, about you. If you've ever been the invisible support, the one who managed things quietly while being managed out of every room, I want you to tell me in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one.